when it comes to my personal connection with music, I guess there's a few ways to answer that question. With few starting points, even in different parts of my life, where things started, where things deepened. I have very early memories of music. I think, like many people, a young age, 3, 4, 5 years old, being impressed by the radio of one of my parents maybe playing an instrument and these kind of things. I remember being about 7 years old, where I developed this obsession with a tape recorder. I was listening to the radio and recording bits of it and replaying things. And this tape recorder also had capacity to change the speed. And so I sometimes think back about that memory as some kind of fertilizer for experimenting with sound. One of the more recent ideas I have around my connection with music is I probably was born being pretty poor eyesighted, pretty poor sighted already. Because when I was about 7 years old, I got glasses, and these glasses were already like -4 or something. Um, Hard to tell, but I wonder sometimes if that added to my very natural sensitivity to music and sound. But yeah, there's of course like a cultural component, a family component, potentially genetic component. My family is all, like, everyone in my family is pretty musical. So my parents encouraged me to play an instrument from a very young age. I started playing guitar when I was 7 years old. And that was primarily classical guitar that I practiced for about 9 years. And then, yeah, really from that moment on, my connection with music evolved in a lot of different ways. Like as a teenager, like many of us, very unconsciously, very often we we build these role models internally around artists and musical genres. I started to drum. I started to be more interested in, yeah, genres of music that were more individually meaningful for me. Like I had a metal phase and a electronic dance phase and a hip hop phase. And when I think back about that period, now with an adult hat on, I realized that music started to play a function of some kind of third parent that provided me with unconditional positive regard. Music became this safe space as a teenager where no matter what I was feeling, it was safe, it was okay, it was accepted. So music became, without necessarily being aware of it, already pretty therapeutic for me in teenage years. And I always had the inclination to experiment with, with, with different genres. I always felt drawn to a long form piece of music. I remember more later when I was 17, I would often listen with the headphones in the dark to a piece of music that were like an hour long. So yeah, that was a very influential time. Um, and then yeah, I actually think that relationship with music, that personal relationship with music, like I think this space where I can express myself, where I can feel different feelings, where I can explore my mental imagination, that really is still the case up until now. So that is really my relationship with listening to music. I'm still in my free time. I find myself very often exploring different record labels, different artists. I really enjoy it when I discover a surprising sound of a new musician. Um, yeah, and then when it comes to playing music, like the expressive part of music, that is has always been an evolution as well. In fact, I think it's actually deepening year after year in my adult life. I'm a student of different types of music, different instruments. It's it plays an important role in my life. Yeah, music, but also sound and ways of listening. And and I think how it has deepened apart from the therapeutic side of things and music being this explorative personal space. And I would dare to say that music also really became part of my spiritual practice, where music can be used to facilitate meditative states of consciousness, trance states. I became increasingly interested over the last years in being a student of kind of various more traditional spiritual musical traditions. So I'm a shakuhachi player, I'm a shakuhachi student, I should say, humbly, for I think about 6 years already, the time being. More recently, I became a Drupad student, which is the most ancient vocal tradition in Indian classical music. And it totally blew my mind the more I learned about this style of music, because it is having so many new ways of thinking about sound and thinking about music that are very alien to us as a growing up in a Western secular culture. That at the very least I can say it's very enriching to be exposed to these kinds of music. I think that's in a nutshell what I would have to say about music making. Yeah, it's both very personal as well as it's there's a spiritual side to it. There's a creative side to it. It's funny because music was there in my first psychedelic experience, and I was aware of its impact. I was aware of at times how it was guiding me, how it was influencing my experience. But it took me some time to really connect those dots more professionally and really start thinking about psychedelics and music and the interaction. But yeah, music was always there when it comes to my personal explorations with psychedelics and music. But at the beginning, it was kind of crude. I had a number of CDs that me and friends were turning towards, and it was kind of hit and miss at times, and there was some experimentation. But yeah, that's one side to it. And I think living in the Amazon jungle when I was 20, 21, that was a whole different angle of being exposed to what music can do, and also what different styles of music can do to the psychedelic experience. Because in this particular context, in the Amazon jungle, I'm talking about Icaros and the Shipibo tradition primarily, at the beginning at least. And yeah, we'll probably talk about this further on, but that was, I think, really my first exposure to music, really being designed to facilitate and support altered states of consciousness. In fact, I'm not fully correct there. I should correct myself. In those early days, there was also some Indian classical music. I remember this really clearly. There was one album by famous sitar player Ravi Shankar, and it was an improvisation together with a violinist and a vocalist. And I still, up today, I still like to kind of rediscover the name of that album, but I remember a very similar feeling of realizing and experiencing how this music seems to be ideally designed in different ways to support these introspective altered states of consciousness.